Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'm Emmy the Cat Lady here with another episode of The Science of Fallout. This week we are looking at the mole rats. They're a common enough enemy in the Fallout series, especially in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, but they are also encountered early on in classic Fallout, such as in Vault 15. They're large rodents with oversized teeth and they're usually found in groups. So, where did they come from? So, the naked mole rat Heterocephalus glaber is also known as the sand puppy, which is a much cuter name for one of the least cute rodents in existence. It's the only species in its genus, and it's quite unique in terms of its physiology and behaviour. For example, they're basically ectothermic, or what people know as cold-blooded, which we've discussed before with the Deathclaw and Gecko videos, as this is a trait that's pretty typical in reptiles, but it's pretty rare in mammals. They also have a complex social structure with division of labour between reproductive and non-reproductive groups, cooperative care of offspring, and this is similar to what you see in colonies of bees, ants and wasps. It's known as eusociality. The only mammals that show this social structure are the naked mole rat and the somewhat related Damaraland mole rat. So they have worker groups that are responsible for gathering food, maintaining the tunnels, and defence of the colony. There's some very interesting things about the mole rat. So they lack pain sensitivity in their skin because they don't have the neurotransmitters and the sensory nerves of the skin. Particularly, they lack substance P, which is a neurotransmitter involved in pain. Scientifically, that's known as nociception. They also don't exhibit itching and scratching behaviour that's seen in other rodents, and itching is kind of in the same category as pain, so it is sort of part of nociception, but histamine's involved as well. If you inject naked mole rats with substance P, they will show pain signalling from exposure to capsaicin, which is the substance that makes peppers spicy, but not to acid, so they still don't exhibit pain when exposed to acid. They have very low metabolic and respiratory rates as well, and they can survive in low oxygen environments. They can even survive in an atmosphere of 80% carbon dioxide and 20% oxygen, and they can live for 18 minutes with no oxygen at all before they have any adverse effects, which is pretty impressive and pretty unusual. There's really not many animals that can survive in that kind of environment, with that much carbon dioxide around and with so little oxygen. So it's quite an impressive adaptation to living in the underground tunnels that they live in. They also seem to have quite a unique resistance to cancer. They have two genes that prevent uncontrolled cell division, which is a major hallmark of cancer development. That's kind of the definition of a tumour is uncontrolled cell division and growth. So the first kind of reported malignant cancers in naked mole rats came from captive-born zoo animals, and this was in 2016. And they lived in an environment with normal atmospheric oxygen of about 21% instead of the 2 to 9% oxygen that they have adapted to. So this excess of oxygen is thought to have promoted growth of cancer in these individual animals. Their lifespan is also pretty impressive. They have the longest of any rodent, as they can get past 37 years of age. Their mortality rate doesn't seem to increase as they get older, unlike pretty much all other mammals. And the queens age more slowly than the others do as well. The reason for this is their ability to reduce their metabolism in adverse conditions and prevent oxidative stress. Similar kind of thing that you see with long-lived reptiles like tortoises, to my mind. In terms of their kind of size and things, they're average about 8 to 10 centimetres or 3 to 4 inches, and they weigh around 30 grams or just over an ounce. The queens can be larger, up to 80 grams or 2.8 ounces. So they have small eyes and poor vision, but they can move backwards just as fast as they can move forward, and they so they can move around very, very quickly in their underground tunnels. They use their enlarged incisors, their teeth, to dig through the soil, and uniquely their lips close behind their incisors, so that can stop the soil from getting into their mouths. They have very little hair. They do have a few, but very, very little hair on their body, with wrinkled pink skin, and there's no kind of insulation layer within their skin, unlike, again, most other mammals that will have a layer of insulation for warmth. Their diet is mainly tubers, or sort of root vegetables, where the kind of meaty part of the vegetable grows underground, like potatoes, and they tend to eat the inside of it so that it can regenerate and continue to feed the colony. So one plant can feed the whole colony for a long time. They do also appear to practice coprophagy, which is eating faeces, and this is thought to be a way of sharing hormones from the queen. In terms of predators, they are eaten by snakes and birds of prey, and they're most at risk of predation when they're digging and pushing soil to the surface. They are native to East Africa, particularly in southern Ethiopia, Kenya and Somalia, so they're not native to the United States. In Fallout, where did the mole rats come from? It's not very clear how the mole rats came to be in North America. According to the Fallout 2 Official Strategies and Secret Strategy Guide, they are either huge rats or the result of gene splicing Kodiak bears with maladjusted lab rats, but there's very little in the game to confirm this. So this is the Enclave field report from Fallout 3 from one of the Enclave camps. So they have classified the mole rats in the Bestiary class, the family, which was what they were originally placed into, but they have been shifted into their own family. So subject most closely resembles a heterocephalous glaber with enlargement due to heavy radiation, while much larger in size than generational ancestors. The local variety seems to have similarly low brain function, possibly due to an exceedingly tiny brain organ. Subjects' incisors show increased enamel and dentine growth, making them razor sharp. Further study reveals extremely low levels of substance P, giving this subject an incredible tolerance to pain. I will take skin samples of my next subject, as I believe the lack of substance P can be spliced and manipulated for beneficial research, but this theory requires testing in a more fitting lab. So the Enclave scientist here was basically wanting to use the skin of the mole rats to potentially make use of that for something because of their insensitivity to pain. The Enclave field report classifies them as Bathyergidae, a family of African mole rats that the naked mole rat was thought to be part of, but they've now been placed in their own family, which is the Heterocephalidae, and that means different head in Latin, essentially. So the other possibility is suggested by the quest Hole in the Wall in Vault 81, where you go into the secret part of Vault 81 where there's a brood of mole rats that were kept for lab testing, so that could explain the presence and abundance in the US. They're not kept as pets except for Rufus and Kim Possible, but he's clearly an anomaly in terms of mole rats. They're not suitable pets due to the needs of their environment and their social structure as well, which is very, very complex. So supporting that in captivity is really not very practical. Definitely not suitable as pets, but it would make sense then that if they are, if they've got them in Vault 81 for the medical science, that maybe mole rats were used a lot more in the Fallout universe for lab specimens and for scientific research, because we know that a lot of the science and research that goes on in the Fallout universe isn't exactly ethical. But the Vault 81 mole rats, they are noted to be unusual specimens, and it's hinted at that they might be genetically engineered, or possibly even they've been exposed to FEV. They do thrive underground, and they do show a clear preference for dark underground locations. So in Fallout 3, You find them a lot in the metro tunnels and in Fallout 4 and underground caves and metro tunnels, and it's kind of less common to see them wandering about on the surface. They can obviously move very, very quickly in the soil, and they burrow and then leap out of the ground to attack, and then they dig down again to avoid any kind of retaliation. You pretty much always find them in groups, and they're often led by a higher level mole rat or a brood mother, which is the kind of strongest version. There does appear to be on the wiki cut content of a mole rat queen that would be similar to how the Marlot queen behaved, but that, as far as I can tell, there's concept art of it, but not really much else. There is a handful of mole rats that have been domesticated. A kind of well-known example is Snuffles, who's the kind of mascot of the quarry workers at Sloan in New Vegas. And there's a little kind of side quest where you can treat his injured leg, and the people of Sloan quite like it when you do that. In Fallout 4 in the Commonwealth, raiders will sometimes attach mines to a mole rat to turn it into a suicide bomber. A bit like the super mutant suiciders that you tend to encounter. Oftentimes, for a new player, the first encounter with one of these explosive mole rats will be when you go to the USAF satellite station Olivia, which is part of a quest for Abernathy Farm, and you'll find a couple of raiders and a dog, and then there's a group of mole rats, including an explosive one, outside the station. So that's often the first encounter in Fallout 4. They are used for food in Fallout, although it seems to be that the meat from mole rats isn't that good. It's very unpleasant. And in Fallout 3, there's a raider scientist called Ryan Brigg who has been working to make mole rat meat more palatable by using wonder glue. So that's something that you can come across in the Drury Street metro tunnels, and you can actually create the mole rat wonder meat for yourself. Moira Brown also does want you to learn a few things about the mole rats. So she doesn't think that they can really be domesticated, so she sends the lone wanderer off to test a repellent stick that she's created, and this is part of the Wasteland Survival Guide quest. However, her chemical concoction is quite explosive on the mole rats, so not so much of a repellent and more of a rodenticide, if you will, which Moira unfortunately gets quite upset about. To Vault 81 and you explore the secret vault, then you do encounter special Vault 81 lab mole rats, which are designated that in the game instead of just being mole rats, and they can transmit the mole rat disease to you. It's really, really difficult to avoid this happening. As I mentioned when I did the video on Vault 81 specifically, if you go in there and do this quest, it's almost certain that you're going to contract the disease. When you get to the end of it, there is a cure available, but there's only one, so you have to decide whether you're going to save young Austin, who is dying, or yourself for the sake of the 10 HP that you've lost from your maximum HP. So obviously you're going to save the kid, right? Of course you are. They're an interesting enemy, and they're based on a really fascinating and unique creature. The naked mole rats look pretty unappealing in real life, and being larger and more aggressive makes them even more unpleasant in Fallout, but their unique physiology and social structures really set them apart from the rest of the rodent order. So very, very interesting creatures, and quite a common enemy. So I found this very, very interesting to learn. There was quite a few things that I didn't know until I started going through the research for this video. So hopefully you've enjoyed some of these weird and wonderful facts about the naked mole rats, and let me know what you think about them as an enemy in the game. And certainly the feature in Fallout 4 that was added where they burrow under the ground and attack and then dig down again is similar. Obviously the rad scorpions do the same thing, but I do think it's really interesting because it does call for a different strategy to deal with them. Because they dig down and then you have to try and figure out where they're going to pop up to get you, because they will jump up behind you And because they tend to come in groups, you can kind of get overwhelmed quite easily if you're not careful. So I do find that aspect really interesting, and I think that's a really good thing for the enemy design in Fallout 4. Hopefully that's something that's going to continue in future games as well, that we're not just making enemies tougher by giving them more HP and more armour, but actually finding different ways to make these fights more interesting, and make the players, make you use different strategies and pay attention to things, because I think that makes it a lot more immersive as a gamer. So that's my thoughts, and let me know what you think about the mole rats, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.